And we'll start with the pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I've excused Virginia tonight from the meeting. She has something that's contagious, and I told her to stay home with her pill bottles. First order of business is a resolution to extend the time to complete the final supplemental environmental impact statement. Henry, would you read the proposed resolution? Which will be number what, Alice?
Oh, it would be number 50.
So is that 50?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my. Is that 50-2016 or 2016-50?
Oh, 2006, whichever, 2016-50 is fine.
Secra Extension Resolution. Whereas a predecessor in interest of Black Oak Wind LLC, the project sponsor, filed a site plan application with the town board of the town of Enfield, the town board, pursuant to the town of Enfield's Wind Energy Facilities Local Law Number 1 of 2009 for the development of a 7-turbine wind-powered generating facility, the project. And whereas on June 9th, 2010, the town board passed a resolution accepting its role as lead agency pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and its implementing regulations at 6 NYCRR Part 617, collectively referred to as SECRA. And whereas after preparation of both draft and final environmental impact statements on December 4th, 2015, the town board issued finding statements for the project pursuant to SECRA. And whereas on June 24th, 2015, the town board received a submission from the project sponsor outlining 2 minor modifications to the project. And whereas on June 8th, 2015, the town board determined that a supplemental environmental impact statement or modified finding statement was not required for the modifications submitted on June 4th, 2015. And whereas the project sponsor further proposes to potentially relocate 2 of the approved wind turbines to 2 or 3 proposed locations, as well as relocate a substation, add a new permanent wind measurement tower just south of turbine 4, and relocate approximately 8,400 linear feet of buried collection line, but except as noted, the project would otherwise remain as consisting of 7 wind turbines generating 16.1 megawatts of electricity, utilizing the GE 2.3-107 model wind turbines. And whereas the project sponsor prepared a draft supplemental environmental impact statement assessing the potential significant adverse environmental impacts associated with the proposed modifications to the project as summarized above, and whereas on March 9th, 2016, the town board passed a resolution accepting the draft supplemental environmental impact statement as complete, and whereas the public comment period for the draft supplemental environmental impact statement expired on April 22nd, 2016, and whereas the town board is now required to prepare a final supplemental environmental impact statement for the project, now therefore be it resolved by the members of the town board of the town of Enfield as follows. Section 1. Pursuant to section 617.9A 5II of the SECRA regulations, the town board determines that additional time is necessary to prepare the final supplemental environmental impact statement adequately, and therefore is extending the time frame to complete the final supplemental environmental impact statement to July 15th, 2016. Section 2. The town board further directs that notice of this resolution shall be filed and circulated to the extent required by any applicable ordinance, statute, or regulation. Section 3. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. The question of the adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly put to a vote on roll call, which resulted as follows.
Do I have a second to this resolution?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this resolution?
It's just a minor comment, since we're putting a lot of dates in here, that the original deadline for the FEIS is based upon the public hearing date, which was April 12th, which is not mentioned here, but just thought I'd note that. I don't think that affects the resolution at all.
I'm wondering, since on your grid here, preparation of initial draft of final SEIS by Black Oak and Haley and whatever their name is.
Aldrich.
Haley and Aldrich, not initiated yet with no projected schedule.
This was as of 2 weeks ago. She said she would send me, this is not my grid, this is Kathy Spencer's grid. She said
Okay.
she was sending me an updated one. I did
Right.
not receive it today. So this is a 2-week-old grid.
So we just don't really know where they're at.
I do know that they've been ordered to start. They just received the final public hearing transcript on Monday.
Right.
And the project sponsor told me today that they were ordered to start. Their replies to the public comment period.
Who orders them?
The project sponsor, Marguerite Wells.
Oh, Haley and Aldrich was ordered to start.
Haley and Aldrich was ordered to start.
Gotcha. Okay. So my only concern is that if you look at the fact that they have to do theirs, then Labella needs to review their comments, I assume. Then we have to rewrite it, then we have to review and edit the town board, so forth and so on. I'm wondering if 7 weeks is gonna be enough. I mean, it may well be enough, but if it lags in other places, seems like it, I suppose we can always go ahead and do a second extension.
My preference would be to do another extension if we need it. And that also is the recommendation from Mr. Pavia.
That sounds fine, then, yeah.
And you can read it.
I'll
Yeah.
pick someone different to read it, I promise.
No, I'm just kidding. No problem.
Any other discussion? Call the vote.
Councilperson Carpenter,
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein,
Aye.
Councilperson Miles,
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder.
Aye.
Carried.
You wanna start marking one? Don't pass it around?
Oh, I don't think you really need to do
No,
that.
Don't need to do that?
It'll, no,
Okay,
that's just part of their formatting.
okay.
I also have a note here. You've all had a chance to glance, at least glance at the transcript of the public hearing. There were several inaudibles, and the transcriber could not figure out who some of the speakers were. Do you have any interest in correcting the written public hearing comments? For instance, in the first hearing, which I got the deputy supervisor to lead, apparently she didn't introduce herself sufficiently to get the transcriber on board, but I know I haven't asked Vera, but I know that many of those unknown speaker is Vera leading the group. But it says unknown speaker in the written. So is there a desire, and some last names and addresses we can tell from the sign-in sheet.
What do you think?
The only ones that I think are worth paying attention to are the public. Some of them, and correcting the name, making sure the name is as much as we can know. One of the speakers at the second one didn't sign in, but we all know who she is, and her last name, and her correct address.
It seems like you just do the best you can, is all. And that's what you can do. You're not gonna go back and find everything if it's not there. So I think that's fine.
It's pretty close.
We got most of the comments in, so even though they're not attributed, they're still there.
Okay, our expert advisor, who is also a member of our community, is here with the finalization of the road use agreement details. So can you bring us up to speed? I know you did me, but for the benefit of
Right.
the
I
whole
talked to
board.
Buddy as the highway superintendent. And discussing the two versions that we had. One short version that I proposed, which is very appropriate if we have all the details nailed down to what the roads are actually gonna be used, which we don't have yet, which I would recommend having all those details before signing that version of the agreement with an appendix attached to it. Versus the agreement draft that Guy produced is much more comprehensive and much more protective of the town, and could be signed at this point because it describes all the things that need to be done before an actual construction permit can be issued. So, you know, last time I was pushing my own version, but I think Guy's version is probably more protective for the town.
But can't we insert this nitty-gritty?
Depending on when you want to sign it.
Oh, I see.
You know,
I
we would
see.
have to have that nitty-gritty before you sign the version that I gave you.
Yeah, okay.
Which we don't have done. If we can wait 2 months to get that information, then that version, because what the appendix will do is specifically identify the roads to be used, the work
Okay.
needs to be done, and the amounts that need to be
Put aside.
Put aside. Whereas with Guys, I would feel comfortable recommending you could sign Guys as it is, as we are today with the status that we have, with the general information that we have, because it has a lot more requirements in it that normally I would recommend we get those things done before we sign the agreement. But if you use the version that Guy has, it will I'm trying to think of the right word. The project sponsor will be it's been a long day and I can't think. their feet will be held to the fire to answer, hold up to it, that's what I'm trying to say.
Prior to issuance of the permit.
Prior to the issues of the building permit.
Yeah. And you think that the nitty-gritty can be done within 2 months?
If we know all the details, I mean, we're still waiting for final construction details
Right,
for the permit.
right.
I mean, I think if the board wanted to pass a resolution saying that we've been doing a lot of things without total construction details,
Mhm.
and that is not that can be workable. But with that short version of the agreement, it implies that we know exactly what we're gonna do, whereas Guy puts the whole process through that we have to go through. And if they agree to go through that whole process in the longer version, then I think the town is protected.
And basically, of Guy's longer version, Appendix A is what has to be filled out
Those are all
and
the forms that have
approved
to be done
prior to permitting.
prior to the actual construction permit, right?
And then he has a separate designated haul routes in there, but that's no big whoopee.
We know where those are pretty much,
Right,
I think.
right.
I mean,
But those two are addendums that have to be signed prior to a permit.
prior to the permit, right?
But the bulk of the agreement can be entered into
Right.
prior
'Cause
to.
that would commit, that's the right word, commit the sponsor to follow it through
Yeah.
with the process.
Are there any questions you want to ask Dan?
If we waited the time period that you're saying, do you still have the initiative and the desire and the willingness to go ahead and come up with a good mix of the two
Yeah,
versions?
No, you're not going to get a mix of the two. I'm not going to authorize the
I don't-
attorney
I
to
don't-
do that.
Basically, Guys has the process more well-defined. I basically list the process in the agreement that said that they will do this, but all the details of the types of roads and everything. The town only has 2 types of roads in this project. I forgot the lower class of roads.
We're not sure which classes we have.
Right.
Given that Guy's version is probably more detailed and more protective to the town, that's your
It
recommendation right now
basically,
is to basically.
it basically is everything you would have in a road use law.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So basically, the process to be followed would, if you had a road use law, the process to be followed would be a town law, and that would be
Right.
set down.
And then this would be
And
adequate.
then that would be adequate.
But we do not
Not have a
have a
town law.
road use law. And that is why Guy's is more extensive.
Right.
And yes, it is the language of a road use law. I mean, there's no, he says that.
Yeah, yours is more digestible, but.
Well,
of
course
But
it
Guy's
is.
is more comprehensive.
It's
and
straightforward, basically.
protective.
And this piggybacks onto the county's road use agreement, because their portion, their road is gonna be, is really the biggest portion
Right.
of the road.
Right, and much different than ours.
And
Not
different road
comparable
condition,
with.
Right, it's not.
Different classes.
Well, it's a different class of road, it's in a different condition
Right.
when it starts. It's not comparable, nor anything we can piggyback on.
Can I ask you a question, Dan, that's a little bit far afield, but it's related to this? My understanding is that, and this is just things that I've heard, I'm not an expert on it, but that there are a number of agricultural facilities being developed in the county or outside the county close by that involve large-scale milking facilities.
Yes.
Yes.
And that part of the process of that is for the businesses that are doing that to buy land that they can basically
Harvest
grow
and-
feed on.
Harvest and
But also that they can take their
apply-
liquid manure to
apply
places,
manure.
yeah. And I'm wondering, when I was talking to somebody that does roads and has that kind of understanding about it the other day, he was saying that this may well be an issue into the future if towns don't have road use laws, that you may find out that there's a lot of trucking happening on your roads
Yeah.
that you
Yes.
don't have
Well,
any
there's
control
no
over.
Yeah.
question. Generally, in most road use laws, the agricultural side is exempt.
Yes. You're much more concerned about
Although,
debris removal.
and the difference with the agricultural versus a short-term, heavy-duty project
Mhm.
is that they're there for the long run, hopefully. And when you're in an ag district, or if they're in an ag district, there's certain state regulations that allows them to use the roads.
Right,
Generally, most highway superintendents will have found that these agricultural enterprises do communicate a little bit better and are aware of the issues. The biggest problem with the agricultural is the heavy, if they're using tractors and manure spreaders that are heavy duty, more and more they're using over-the-road type tankers to haul
Right.
that equipment. And they're using over-the-road large tractor trailers and dump trucks to carry the feed back in.
right,
Which is more typical of normal traffic. The damages that they can cause are often very seasonal. If they're on the roads with heavy tractors in the spring or the early fall when there's a freeze thaw going on,
Right.
they can cause a lot more damage. And I know most of the highway superintendents that have those entities in their jurisdictions, try to work with them to say, you gotta stay off certain roads
Right.
at certain times of year.
right,
Also logging operations.
Logging operations are a big one too. And a lot of times the state will put a requirement on them that they can't haul off the site unless the roads are totally frozen or they're in
Totally dry.
in a summer condition where the roads are not, the road bases are not wet
Right.
and soft.
Are those covered under some ag agreements if they're on ag land?
The logging?
Logging is
Logging-
separate.
logging.
The logging is
But it's on
regulated
ag-
more by DEC and then they try to.
Well, in road use laws.
Yeah.
And the road use laws are.
So the question I was trying to get to was, would it be prudent for Enfield to start considering the idea of having a road use law that covers more than
Yeah,
this?
I think so.
And would using Guy's model be more appropriate in that instance to do for this specific situation and then expand on it, or would it not make any
That's,
difference?
Guy's model was basically taken from a road use law
Yeah.
that I believe I drew up.
Right, so it seems like in keeping with that and in keeping with the fact that we are trying to do a comprehensive plan
Mhm.
into the future, it seems like maybe that would be a good direction to go.
That's a good direction, and inventorying the roads, looking at the conditions and the types of roads. It may very well be if you've got 150, 200, 300 acres of ag land that was maybe not actively farmed, or was farmed with a local farmer, and now you've got a sub-local farmer that's, hauling 10, 20 miles away, that you look at the construction of that road and then change the classification of that road.
Right,
So road classification and inventory is one of the first things that
Right.
you really want to do.
yeah,
And then you mark them with weight limits
Right, then you can.
and then you have more enforceable powers.
The thing with weight limits, if the traffic is going to
Right,
a
local
site on
delivery.
that road,
Local
you cannot
delivery, it's
limit them
exempted,
from
yes.
going to that road.
Yes.
The most effective thing has been to work with
Right.
the farmers or the other haulers.
Right.
And if you have a long-term site on a road, you need to look at how the road is constructed
Yeah.
to support that traffic.
Another thing to consider is like when a state road is closed down or a section of it because of an accident or something, a lot of times the road is detoured. sometimes onto local roads.
Yeah, for short terms.
For short-
Long-term
emergency.
detours on state roads are required to use state roads. Or roads that are similar construction.
Well, they
County
they have a meeting with all the involved agencies
Right.
to make a plan.
Right. And when they did the bridge on 79, just up from the corners,
Yeah, they went up Waterburg, down Perry City, and then back down. I think.
that was put onto county roads, which are determined to be similar. But they actually, the official state detour totally avoided the county roads. They stated that the detour signs were further out, and they might have been going down Perry City, which is a county road, but a heavier duty one.
Yeah.
They look at the functional classification of the road, whether it's an arterial or a collector for a local road. They try to keep them off of the local residential feeder roads.
Admittedly, I'm not coming from a position of expertise, but it seems to me that despite the fact that you really did a nice job on this road use agreement that you developed, that we might be better served as a town to think about the one that has more legal impact.
That's what I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that at at the stage we're at right now.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks.
Because, and the guy said, and I agree with that at this now, because we don't, I mean, you have some force to enforce this
Right.
because of the whole permit process.
Right.
But that spells it out very clearly so that everyone
Right.
knows what the expectations are.
Great, thanks so much.
The other concern, the reason we need to move forward on a road use law is transfer stations, which will, and I've been told already are having an impact on our town roads.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Whether it's, and again, that can be dealt with weight limits. as long
Yes,
as
yes.
Because
Yes.
they don't have to follow
Yes,
a road.
and the whole thing can be dealt with in a matter of this much time and priorities, which are ever changing.
The biggest problem on any road use is enforcement, and getting
Yes.
someone out there to enforce it.
Yes.
So is what Guy written, what he's written, is that complete, sufficient? Do you feel like it's ready to go, the way that he did it?
Yes. I want to just review it once more.
Okay,
And I didn't bring my copy. It wasn't on my desk in the office, and I wasn't in the office today.
but we could deal with it in the June meeting.
Here I
Yeah,
have
I
3
think you
copies
can-
right here.
You know, I mean, when I read through it, I think it's, I think you could act on it tonight.
And do you feel like it has anything that Buddy should have input into?
Buddy's
or-
already reviewed it with
Okay.
Guy, and I talked to Buddy earlier
Okay,
in the week, and,
Give it to Dan.
yeah,
He needs a second copy.
'cause I don't think there's anything in there that I was concerned about.
What about that nitty-gritty you were talking about? I thought that had to be added in there.
No, it's Appendix A,
Oh.
which the body refers to, and a permit cannot be issued until Appendix A is signed. And Appendix A is the nitty-gritty.
But he's got,
Work location, start date, contact number, and then the haul routes are Appendix B, which are part of the nitty-gritty.
and is this road use agreement that Guy wrote, is that available to the public?
It has been for 10 months,
It's on the website.
9 months. Is it on the website? I'd have to check to be sure of
I
that.
didn't see it on there, but there was a,
I don't think,
It's
We had
a
a final-
working document. It has not been acted on by the board. I had Guy prepare this last August.
Right. I'm just wondering, what I remember of the public access to paperwork information is that whenever something's being discussed in a board meeting, it's supposed to have either copies of it at the board meeting or copies on the website that people from the town can access and read ahead of time, so
Right.
they can speak on it.
Yeah, it was not marked as an action item tonight, so that was not provided tonight.
I think it would be helpful to have it, but.
It has
also-
never been an action item on an agenda, I don't believe.
Right. Well, I'm thinking that for me, I would rather vote on it at the June meeting
That's when you are going to.
and then have.
I was just about to announce, this will be an action item on the
Right.
regular meeting for the one of the purposes being for full disclosure to the public.
So
This
we'll
is a
put it-
working document
Put it
right
on the
now.
website or do something like that.
I don't know what she does.
Is that? Can we put it on
If
the
we have a
website?
final draft, we can do that, certainly.
Right.
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think actually legally you're supposed to do. I might be wrong, but.
Well, it says, certainly at the bottom of each agenda, it has to be available 24 hours prior to the meeting. And you can pick up a copy at the town hall at the current copying fee.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that's.
So you'll
an
have
item.
copies at the town hall for people. to-
Right, but if
Right.
you wanted, it can be on the website too. It's
Right.
easier for people to,
Yeah, it
see a
seems like
document like
In this day
that.
and age, seems like that would be a good idea.
I think it would be helpful, I mean, even just say, this is a draft, a working version of it, so people know this is not a final document.
right, it hasn't been approved yet. Just put draft, yeah.
That way
Okay,
they can
great.
see what we're talking about.
That sounds great.
The one thing that Buddy and I talked about on this was, there's financial security required for repair or reconstruction of the road.
Right.
Right.
He was thinking, and I kind of agree with him, that there may need to be some kind of penalty clause in here, that if they don't follow through with the agreement, the board has some recourse to be compensated for that, or as a
Right.
fine.
Is there financial security,
Financial, either letter of credit or,
The bond.
it's a
And
letter of
when-
credit or bonded here.
and when does that expire?
And it shouldn't expire till after the project is over, and probably
It has
a
to be
year
at
later.
least 12 months. Because you can't do the final inspection for at least 12 months.
Right.
So the question that we brought up last week, I guess it was, at the board meeting, was what about the deconstruction phase of the project and the damage to the roads during that
Okay.
phase? How do
Through
we-
a
That's really
decommission.
another, I think, the road use agreement itself, it covers the short time period during construction. All the terms of that should be in effect during deconstruction. I think if they have to deconstruct the system,
Right.
that includes enough financial security put up for that to protect the roads.
So we should make sure that the decommissioning agreement has
Has the
protection for the roads as
road
well,
preservation
written into
part
it.
of it.
That makes sense.
And then some form of bond for
Right.
that, some
Right.
numbers on that.
Great. That sounds like a good idea.
And of course, that's a moving target, because if it's, today the roads are in one condition,
Yeah.
in 20 years, if they have to decommission it, or 10 years,
Yeah.
we'd have to keep updating.
You
Well, at
have
least
to do
the
the
relative
inspection prior to.
At least we can have an understanding in the agreement that it will be dealt with.
Right. And because the bulk of this is on county road, you would have to make sure that they got a permit from the county to use their portion of the road
Right.
also
Yeah.
during the decommissioning.
Right.
Guy does have the 12 months in here. for
Yeah,
the-
12 months guarantee period. Right.
Okay, this will be on the general meeting agenda in June.
Is that meeting date on the 8th of June?
I think it is the 8th of June, the regular meeting.
I will not be there.
You will miss fun and games.
I will.
Okay.
Vacation.
Anniversary. 55. That's kind of a day to miss.
This is the same thing.
Yeah. There's guys. So I have to clarify my mind on the finalization of the decommissioning agreement. Have all of you received Black Oak Wind Farm's decommissioning plan? It's got draft written all about over it. It's 3 pages long.
I don't know that I have a copy of it anymore at this point.
I'm not sure if I did either.
I'm not sure. It wasn't sent this
That
week.
you
was
never got it,
I don't
or
think
you don't have it now?
Well, I don't remember seeing it. I remember seeing excerpts from it in something that we got, but it was only excerpts from it.
so. Yeah, I think we need another copy of that.
Um, I'm thinking that Alice inserted them into a set of minutes possibly, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so, at last week's meeting, you had a 2-page resolution about decommissioning. Establishing amounts and terms of decommissioning bonds and other security for future performance of decommissioning and removal obligations of developer. You had that list.
I think that might have been 2 months ago.
Okay, 2 months ago.
Looks familiar.
'Cause I think it was tabled.
And it starts with, again, there's no date on the one that I have, so I don't know.
Resolution 2016-blank.
And if I have something that says Black Oak Wind Farm decommissioning plan with no date, it
Oh.
starts with anticipated life of wind turbines.
And it has
Looks-
draft across it.
Is that it?
So
Got
you
that.
have that.
Is that the current?
This is their plan
Gotcha.
that
okay.
was presented to us.
And I was going to work on a formula for the actual amount,
Okay,
which I haven't done yet.
okay. So you're working on the formula to put in the agreement about, to tie the amount to some cost increase marker,
Yeah.
some national cost increase marker.
That would be ideal.
Okay, so, before you go on family vacation, you think you could tart something up?
By the next meeting, that I won't be here for, sure.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so that was one thing from last month. This agreement that has been presented can be updated yearly as to the amount. But then Mike had some concerns about, oh, the board might not pay attention. So he wanted something up front or something. So there, I'm a little confused. Is what Michael says he'll do what would please you, Mike?
I guess what I really need to see is something that is a real complete thing, and what they say here is a decommissioning plan. It's an overview of the decommissioning process. And it definitely has some thoughts about dollars and everything. And it says we will comply with the local law concerning decommissioning site restoration. But I think maybe what I would be most comfortable with is something that actually has a very clear written perspective on exactly what it is they will do with exact amounts of money and everything. That's just really clear and
So you want them to break down the decommissioning process and attach a money amount to it?
let's say clearly define it rather than break it down.
So
Just really
this, on the second page,
where they say wind turbine removal.
no, yeah, but up in the paragraph before, a removal of above-ground structures, removal of below-ground structures to a depth of 36 inches, restoration of topsoil, revegetation and seeding, 2-year monitoring and remediation periods, access roads, fencing will not be removed. Do you want them in bullet form, or you want 5 more parts, broken down 5 more ways? Each one of those broken down in 5 more steps. Removal of below-ground structures to a depth of 36 inches. Do you want the machine they're gonna use? And, you know,
No, I guess what it is that they've defined what they're gonna do, and they have lots of justifications for why it would work and how it would work and so forth and so on, but I don't know that the justifications they provide are necessarily correct or going to be valid. I mean, you know, just to simply say the presence of teats scrap recycling within the project boundaries makes the recycling of all metal components an easy and cost-effective process. Well, that may be true. It may be that they'd be fine taking the process. It may be true that they won't even be around in 25 years. So if they're using that concept as one of the qualifiers for how they're going to come up with the dollars to do it, then that's a very questionable way to justify it to me. It seems to me less narrative and more very clearly defined and detailed facts about how it's going to be done.
Bullets.
And what the costs are going to be, yeah. And some of it is good. I mean, some of it, like you said, wind turbine foundation removal, wind turbine removal, all the things that they say that they will do, where they clearly define what they're going to do. But
but you want a dollar amount attached to these 4 things that they break out, or more than 4 things?
the 4 things,
Wind turbine removal, wind turbine foundation removal, underground electrical collection system, and substation.
I don't know that in my mind it needs to be broken down in terms of what's going to cost for each one, what the dollar cost will be for each one. I mean, the underground electrical collection system, they say we're going to leave it in the ground. Substation, they say somebody will want it, so we're not going to take it out, basically. They do say, to the extent necessary, topsoil would be removed prior to removal of structures and stockpiled and put back in place. That's great. I think that's in keeping with what our wind law says, and that they have to restore the ground when it's all said and done.
They mentioned keeping the collection lines in place.
Underground electrical collection system. The cables and conduits contain no materials known to be harmful to the environment and will be cut back to a depth of at least 36 inches. All cable and conduit buried greater than 36 inches will be left in place and abandoned. And I guess the things that I'm more concerned about are how to make sure that the money is available when the time comes, how to make sure that the money that is available when the time comes is a sufficient amount to do it, how to make sure that this covers the roads repair as well as just the pads where the wind turbines are going to be. I'm not seeing anything in here at all about roads. So I assume that they didn't consider that as part of the process. It seems like it's kind of slipped through the cracks, maybe.
In terms of repairing the road afterward.
In terms of repairing the roads, if they need any repair afterwards, yeah.
Of town roads.
Exactly, yep. Yeah, I don't see anything that has to do with roads on here.
Okay.
So I would think those three things really are the most important. I think.
Condition of the roads, or the roads in the decommissioning process. You want this plan more clearly?
Well, what they were looking for was to change from a bond to a different format of guaranteeing the money. They were hoping not to have a bond for the whole 25, 30 years, because they have to pay for the bond the whole time.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. So they were gonna try and find another format that they could give us that would be guaranteeing the money and its availability, but not in a bond format. So they have letters of credit, there's different, I mean, you could put the money in the bank, and say, okay, the money's in the bank, it can't be taken out unless this particular, it's like an account that's,
And so they should choose, you want them to choose one?
well, they wanted to do that. That was what their choice was. They asked if they could do it in a format other than a bond. They asked us if they could do it in a format other than a bond. And I remember at the meeting, I think we said, yeah, that was fine, as long as they found a format that
Yeah,
was an
but
acceptable
we're now
format.
talking about the written piece of paper.
Right.
So
on the
that's
written
what
piece of
we're
paper-
talking about now.
On the written piece of paper, we would have to have something. that-
Whereas the general form of a decommissioning bond written as a surety bond guaranteeing has been generally, but not specifically reviewed and reported. And so that, you want more words put in that one?
Where are you at, what page?
Page 1, it's the third whereas.
No, I don't have a whereas. I just have their,
Resolution, no.
I just have the decommissioning
Yeah,
plan.
you do.
That's all I have.
You,
I don't have the resolution, no. I just have the decommissioning plan.
you have the resolution.
I don't think I have it today.
I can look and see, I'm sure it's in here somewhere. But isn't the resolution based on their decommissioning plan?
No. I don't
What
believe
is it
so.
based on?
Other things that Guy has found. I mean, I don't know. I can specifically ask Guy, but
Well,
I
I
would doubt it.
guess I'm not really clear then what the resolution is doing. What is it
Oh.
accomplishing, the resolution?
It's forcing the project to put money aside for the purposes of decommissioning. To
But-
bring the land back to, a condition similar to how they found it before they started it.
And how does it relate to Black Oak's decommissioning plan?
It's much more general. We're only concerned about the amount of money.
Why wouldn't we want to be concerned about other things too then?
I guess we're fast moving to that point.
Well, it seems like if they went to all the trouble to give us a decommissioning plan, we should at least consider it as part of the process anyways. Especially when they do nicely say, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that. We just, does the resolution itself address all the things that the decommissioning plan addresses?
No, it's about the money.
Okay.
Well, and they have to follow seeker, DEC, they have to follow state
Right.
laws.
Right, but they also have to follow our
And it
town laws.
also has the road use agreement referred to in the decommissioning. Oh, maybe that's a different resolution. Guess that's a different resolution.
Well, I guess I'd have to look at the resolution, because I don't see a copy of it.
Okay, I will make sure you, okay, all board members get, oh, where's this? Send. Now, you have Black Oak's decommissioning plan.
I do have it.
So, Michael, you don't think you've seen Black Oak's decommissioning plan?
It looks familiar, but I can't find it.
Do you
here.
think you have it at home?
I would have another copy of that.
And do you have a date connected with that at all?
No.
I think
Well,
that-
not on the printed copy. I might from my email.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, I mean.
Oh, you want the date that it was
Well-
sent?
It really makes a difference if you know, if you're dealing with the most current thing. Maybe we could ask Black Oak folks if they know this is most current, or?
They would not, the people who are here tonight wouldn't know that. Okay, that's no problem. If you want the date, I'll get you the date.
I think it'd be great, yeah,
Okay.
to know what it was.
Okay. Send board.
This looks familiar, except I don't recall the graph printed across.
Well,
it.
that would have been across it.
Hmm.
Send board Black Oak's decommissioning plan. And send the board a draft resolution to establish a decommissioning plan, right?
Well, I don't know. A draft resolution to establish a decommissioning plan would mean that we would write our own, or would we would just approve theirs? Which would be preferable, or which would be likely?
It's not my understanding that we have to do what Black Oak did. That's not our job.
We
Our
have
job
to-
is to ensure that they return the land to much like they found it. That involves money, and so
Right.
our part would be making sure that the money is there.
Right.
And if they go bankrupt, the money is still there to return the land to much the way they found it.
And in the original EIS, does the town require Black Oak to develop a decommissioning plan and present it?
Say that again?
In the original environmental impact statement, does that statement require Black Oak, or say that Black Oak will develop a decommissioning plan and present it to the town?
I don't think so. But I'd have to go back a year.
Well, more than that, probably. There are a lot of things in the finding statement. I think Dan mentioned this a few meetings back. In the finding statement, in one part of it, there's a list of a number of things that Black Oak will do.
Right,
before
prior
they
to
get there.
permit it.
Right, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering if developing a decommissioning plan is in that list of things to be done before the permit is issued. In which case, it seems a little bit unclear in my mind whether we should be doing this and approving, whether we should be doing it ourselves and giving it to Black Oak and saying, this is what you gotta do, or asking for it from Black Oak and saying.
You've already gotten it from
Okay.
Black Oak. So that part is over.
We have. Well, the question is this sufficient from Black Oak? I mean, we could send this back to Black Oak and say, these are the ways we would like you to improve it.
That's right, and that's what this meeting is about.
That's what we'll do with our resolution, send it back to Black Oak.
No, no, no. I would like to have all the board's concerns out and addressed prior to having the attorney once again draft a resolution.
Okay. So, how do you want to proceed with that?
That's what I'm trying to eke out here, is everybody's concerns.
Okay.
And your concern about the decommissioning plan was there was nothing about the conditions of the road and, or the condition of the roads is part of the decommissioning plan.
Right.
And you wanted a dollar amount attached to each section.
No, I don't.
No,
No, a dollar amount attached to the
whole thing.
to the whole thing, or if it needs to be attached to separate units, to each one of the 7 units. I guess it's possible that 1 unit or 2 units might be decommissioned, and not the whole farm be decommissioned. Maybe for some reason one is going to be.
Well, it is in the draft that's already been formulated, it is per windmill.
Yeah, 125,000 per window.
So I would think that if they took down 2, then it would be 125,000 times 2.
Right.
And the rest of the money would have to stay in escrow.
Right. So, just to go back to my question before then, is it that the town will actually write the agreement and then let Black Oak understand that that's what they have to do, or will we approve Black Oak's agreement?
Well, I didn't bring my law with me. I'm not sure the local law demands a plan. And I did not bring my local law, I didn't bring that folder with me. So if anybody has the local law, maybe you could see whether it's the amount of decommissioning that we require in the law or an actual plan.
Gotcha. That makes
I
sense.
do think, but I will get more clarification on this, Black Oak forward this decommissioning plan to the board as an informational piece of
What they're
paper.
planning to do. It seems like more of that than an actual thing to me, and as that, it's very helpful.
Well, actually, it does have it in our law. A decommissioning plan, a written or detailed plan submitted by an applicant or operator. Well, that's in the definitions, so let me check on that.
What page is that?
Well, I think that's in the definitions. No. Yeah, it's in definitions, so let me complete it.
But that's not the section where it requires a
No,
decommissioning
it's-
plan.
It does say, the applicant shall submit a written decommissioning plan that shall include at minimum the anticipated life of the wind turbine, the estimated decommissioning cost in the current dollars, how said estimated decommissioning cost was determined.
Which number is that, Michael?
Number 10, this is on page 8. Let's see what section that's under. That's under Article 3, Section 1,
Right, I got it, yeah.
Part A, number 10.
Anticipated life, the decommissioning costs, how said estimate was determined, the method of ensuring that funds will be available for decommissioning, the method by which the decommissioning and restoration funds will be kept current relative to increases and decreases in total decommissioning and restoration. That's what I was asking for right there, actually.
Right.
Was the method by which we know that it'll be kept current. The form of any type of security bond or other undertaking that will be posted to assure that the then current decommissioning or restoration costs are available for decommissioning and restoration, and the manner in which the WTG will be decommissioned and the site restored. And then further on, under Article 6, Section 1F, the applicant or operator shall continuously maintain a fund, bond, irrevocable letter of credit, or other form of security or undertaking that is, number 1, acceptable to the town, number 2, in an amount reasonably and periodically determined by the town, Number 3, in favor of and payable to the town upon demand. Number 4, for the removal and decommissioning of any WTG or wind energy facilities and for site restoration. Number 5, in the amount of $125,000 or such greater amount as reasonably determined by the town for each WTG or for each wind energy facility subject to a permit. All costs of the financial security shall be borne by the applicant. All decommissioning fund requirements shall be fully funded and approved by the enforcement officer before any building permits issued. The amount of the required decommissioning fund may be periodically reviewed by the town in its discretion and increased or decreased based upon the changes over time for the actual estimated costs of removal, decommissioning, and restoration. Failure to provide such additional security or undertaking within 90 days of the town's demand, therefore, shall subject the applicant or operator to permit revocation or other remedies set forth in this local law. The interesting thing is that it says that the applicant shall continuously maintain a fund, bond, or letter of credit that is in the amount of $125,000 or such greater amount as reasonably determined by the town for each WTG, which means it can't be less than, at least my reading of it, is that it can't be less than
Right.
$125,000.
Right, that's why it's 125,000 is because the law says so.
Right, yeah, so.
So it seems to me, it's clearly in the law that there is an escalator clause in the amount of the decommissioning fund.
It is, oh yeah, it's been in the law all along, yeah.
Okay, but you're concerned that it's not in the resolution.
Well, what is likely to happen, in my mind, is that once things are going and once that amount of money is put away somewhere, letter of credit or whatever it may be, 20 years may easily go by without anybody thinking about the escalation of costs. And that suddenly in 20 years or 25 years, it's time to decommission them. It's going to cost $200,000 per unit to decommission them. There's only $125,000 per unit put away, and at that point, somebody's left holding the bag. Well, if I was a big company at that point and didn't have enough money to decommission them, I would just file bankruptcy and go on my way and just say, gee, sorry, you take what's there and take care of it yourself. Not to say that that's what they would do, but that's very typical behavior of some businesses, and it seems like we should try and protect ourselves from it if we can.
So is what Michael said he would do, that
That sounds great.
protection that?
Yeah,
Well, I'm wondering whether, actually, it sounds like Black Oak should be determining the cost. Well, yeah, we can still do that, but according to the law, in the Part 10, not only providing the estimated decommissioning cost in current dollars, but how said estimate of decommissioning cost was determined, and that's not really included in the plan, how they determined. They just said, well, the cost is $50,000, but they don't really explain how they determine what that cost is, which is required in our law.
The cost of what is 50,000?
Well, they said the current cost of decommissioning turbines is estimated to be approximately $50,000 per turbine, although this cost will be offset by the salvage value of the towers and turbine components. That goes on to talk about salvage value of steel and copper, et cetera, but it doesn't really go into detail, which is required according to the law, how they estimated the $50,000 per turbine.
Well,
and what they did do was give 3 references at the
right,
end.
and I printed one of those out for you, and it's pretty
Well,
Detailed.
Right.
Well,
It is from 2011 though,
Yeah,
which
well,
is
we
6
need-
years old already.
I'd say that doesn't really meet the requirements of the law. How said estimate?
References, you wouldn't say met the requirement of the law.
I would like to see it written in here in the plan, not just a reference to some other document somewhere else.
Typically, you'd think it wouldn't just refer to a document and say, that it seems like they would want to give you a little more real information about it.
Yeah, if they determine that, then why not put it in there? They obviously did the work doing that.
Okay. And from what I remember reading the one that Ann gave us, it was not definitive. as far as costs go. In fact, I think it said that it was really hard to determine the costs in terms of current value, because the costs of metals go up and down so much. It was really tough to get to a real cost. So
Yeah.
something more definitive, it seems like, would be more appropriate.
I mean, I can still continue with my best guesstimate.
Right.
Well,
but-
what
but-
you're doing has nothing to do with method of determining.
No, but it's related. It's related.
Well, it's related.
It's kind of doing the same thing.
But the Canoff report
We want
has
to,
a lot of lists of parts.
yeah, we want to know if the $125,000 or whatever the amount should be is enough, and how to, come up with a formula or calculation that we can use. And that's basically what, part of what they need to do as well too.
Okay.
How that estimate of decommissioning costs was determined. 'Cause you have to go on cranes, and you have to, hire contractors and haulers and all sorts of other details that we've talked about.
Right.
And it doesn't really go into that level of detail.
And you did notice this company here is saying that we'll help you with that, windturbines.com. Said that they have information about decommissioning costs, and that they do a lot of study on it and so forth and so on.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So be a good place to
Yeah.
start with maybe.
Maybe
They might be able to send you some different things.
we could make that plan.
You want the breakdown of how the costs are arrived at, how the decommissioning costs are arrived at.
Yeah, basically, according to our law, how said estimate of decommissioning cost was determined.
Okay.
I'm sure the $50,000 came from some number, some calculation.
Right,
based on-
Canas. It's pretty detailed. Or North, silent K. Of course, it's probably a different windmill, because these windmills are new. So another question is, have these GE turbines ever been decommissioned? Mark says no.
Probably not yet. It's pretty good.
Well, that'd be my thought, probably not yet.
And we don't, just as a side thing, I wonder if there's anything to deal with environmental damage from wind turbine fires. Do we have any coverage for that?
Well, first you have to go back to the law. What do you mean coverage? These
And-
are on private lands.
Well, they're on private lands. I mean, if there's environmental damage, it may spread through a number of people's property.
Oh, you mean a
and-
fire will get away?
Yeah, well, the fire itself, I mean, if you watch those turbine blades burning, there's an incredible amount of black smoke coming off them, which I assume has something to do with chemicals burning. If it's leaving chemical residue on people's property, how do we, is there something in the law that lets us have any say in the process of cleaning up the chemical residue from people's property? And I don't, I have read it, I don't remember seeing anything about that. I remember seeing about that fires will be taken care of, but not necessarily the aftermath of the fires in terms of environmental damage. But I'll look into it. See what I can
You'd be
find.
more concerned about oil leak than smoke.
Yeah,
Oil leak?
Yeah, if it was a fire and it ruptured,
The oil in the generator?
yeah, in the turbine, if that came out of there, and I don't know how much is in there, but it seemed like there was quite a bit. But the smoke residue, most of that would be in air and not really on somebody's land. But,
Yeah, I don't know.
At that point, when the DEC get involved and have some remediation enforced?
Would be
I don't know.
mine.
Hard to know. I guess that's something we should find out about. I'll see what I can find out.
Okay, so we will try to get these concerns addressed on paper. And it'll be on the regular June meeting, but I doubt it will be an actionable item. Okay, and okay, we'll move on to the Gingrich letter to our code enforcement officer. And you've all been provided with a copy of this. And I've asked Alan, our code officer, to tell the board his questions or concerns.
Briefly, I received a letter from a concerned resident about a number of violations of DEC regulations, secret law, and also the local wind law. So I'm kind of looking to the board on advice on how to handle those. Most legal matters, I refer to our attorney for advice. And I've turned the letter over to our attorney, and he's looking to the town board for direction on how to address the comments, whether he should address them or how to address them, I guess. The letter explains quite thoroughly what the violations are and why.
So our attorney wants to know from the board how much time or some direction on time spent on these this citizen's concern. Much of the time will be on research, because he does not have knowledge of the correct truthfulness of some of the allegations.
Didn't Marguerite address a couple of these at one point? Didn't she say, I thought she said excavation of the turbine 4 foundation. They were digging there to see what kind of soil was there.
She was talking about a Met Tower. There's other.
Yeah, that's a separate thing.
Separate.
But I seem to recall her referring to the excavation of the turbine to find out what kind of soil was there, but you can also do that with a core sample, I guess. So.
I know, the way I see it, that the resident has raised a legal issue about the project in terms of they've already started construction. We can see the access roads, and we've seen pictures of the excavation site. I haven't been on it personally, but I'd say that it requires, and it gets into a lot of gray areas in terms of DEC and local law, that probably need to be sorted out in terms of what's, legal. I'd say Guy can help us with that.
Yeah, but I just heard that guy wants us to help him with it.
Right, but he wants us to know whether he should look into this further.
Well, I
don't
would
know
al-
from him.
I would also offer that DEC has told me verbally that there were no DEC infringements. Now, I would be happy to go back to DEC and get that in writing. I did not ask for it in writing.
Are there other issues that were brought up here that they did not look at?
Well, the violation, alleged violation of the town wind law doesn't involve the DEC really, right?
Right.
I mean, there's separate violations. The DEC has looked at it on their own, and supposedly determined there were no violations, and there was less than 1 acre of disturb. But what I need to look at more is the violations of the local law, which would be what I would enforce.
Right.
And the local law is pretty vague.
In places.
Something that's where a guy can give clarification
Okay.
in respect to the flood.
So, parts of the letter regarding local law.
So if Guy researches this, who pays his fee, the town or Black Oak?
The
We do.
town.
We do.
Can I ask you a question, Alan? Having built,
As soon as the race is over.
having gotten building permits in a number of different towns in the county and dealt with different building inspectors on issues, what I found is that there's not really a clear consistency of policy in terms of how building inspectors deal with beginning a building site, beginning a building process in relation to when the permit's issued. I have had times when I've asked the building inspector if it was okay to do some initial site work, and they say that's fine, just don't do the foundation until I have foundation plans and I know what you're gonna put there and so forth and so on, so I can look at it. But in other places, particularly in the town of Ithaca, we've actually started to do site work, or asked if we could start to do site work, and we're told very clearly and with no uncertainty that we can't do anything at all in that site until a permit has been issued. We can't touch the site with a machine or whatever. Then it goes back into, can you say, well, I wasn't getting ready for the building, I was just taking my bulldozer out and having fun and playing around, which you certainly could say in a legal sense, but most building inspectors will call you on that, just like a judge would call you on and say, you're just bull right now, you're trying to pull the wool out of my eyes, but I know what you're really doing, and you can't do that, you're not allowed to do that. I don't know legally what the correct interpretation is of starting to prepare a site, and our law doesn't say anything about preparing the site. It just says you can't construct or operate a wind energy facility without a permit and without being in compliance with law. Do you have any sense at all of a correct position or of a typical position that the town of Enfield has taken in the past with preparation of a site before a permit's issued?
It's kind of two separate things. As far as the building site, usually I don't have a problem with that site excavation or grading, not digging the hole.
Right.
In other towns, they also have zoning, which may influence why the town of Ithaca is so strict on that.
Right.
But the wind law is different than any other construction, so I kind of would have to look at that in a different
Right.
light, I guess.
Right. So it kind of throws it back into the legal territory, yeah. Makes sense.
So, I
On
mean,
the town of Ithaca side, speaking from some experience,
Yeah.
the town passed an excavation law that if you moved more than 50 cubic yards of material, you
Right.
had to get a fill permit, an
Exactly,
excavation or fill
yeah.
permit, because that law was passed because people were starting to clear the site, and there was no regulation other than the DEC regulation for an acre disturbance. So
Right.
you go out there and dig a 50-foot deep hole, as long as it wasn't
Right.
over an acre in size, and there was no regulation of it until they added that to their code.
Right. So it seems to me it's a
Local.
kind of a multifaceted question here. First of all, are they doing something that's against the town of Enfield law in terms of permits? Maybe not. Are they doing something against the Department of Environmental Conservation's regulations in terms of size?
Right.
But there's another issue as well, and it may not be so much a legal one as it is a conceptual one, is that was Black Oak saying that they wouldn't start this project until they had permits to start the project? And is there anything that they've submitted that says that they won't begin, or is there any understanding between the town and Black Oak that they weren't to begin the process until they had permits? And I don't know enough of the history to know that that's true or not. But I feel like there was an understanding that maybe that's not true.
I don't know about that. I haven't seen anything in documents that I've looked at.
I haven't
Um,
seen anything I recall.
And from an enforcement side, if you're in a process that has a lot of questions in it, and you're in the middle of the process, whether or not there's a legal precedent, or it's definitely a negative connotation if they start doing stuff like that, even though it may be perfectly legal. I mean, if a landowner had 100 acres of timber and he wanted to clear cut it, as long as he didn't disturb the earth,
Right.
there's no problem.
It's his timber. Yeah.
Or if you wanted to mow, a 50-acre field that was brush so that you could build solar panels, there's no law that says you can't do that.
Right. And could we recognize the lady from Black Oak?
Yes.
Are you talking about the access road on John Ranch's property?
I'm not familiar with all of the things that Marcus, could we ask Marcus to be more definitive about what it is he's talking about? Is that all right?
Sure.
Marcus?
Actually, it comes directly from Black Oak's own document. They just say access road when they're claiming beginning construction. Or completed construction. Completed construction on access roads, on foundation, excavation for Met Tower, etc.
Do you have that?
I don't think so.
I have a question for Alan. If someone started to dig a foundation for a house before they actually had a permit, would you just ask them to stop, or would there be legal action against them?
In most cases, when people are digging a hole to build a house, they've already talked to me. I mean, on occasion, if I was to go out and see them digging a hole for a house, I'd obviously stop in and say, you need to get a building permit. But I wouldn't necessarily stop them as long as they came in and got a permit for it.
And if they didn't have a permit though, would just them stopping the excavation be enough, or would there be legal action against them?
Usually stopping the excavation would be enough. I mean, if they're actually building a building, for example, a garage without a permit, I could issue a stop work order on the project, then they would legally have to stop. And if they didn't stop, there'd be,
That's basically all you're looking for, is for them to stop. You don't do,
in residential
you don't
construction,
prosecute them
you-
for,
Excuse me?
you just want them to stop until they have a permit. You don't prosecute them for illegal construction.
Not usually, as long as they're willing to get a permit and work with me, I don't have a problem with. Obviously, they were continue to work with stop work order, and then I would take legal action.
So the end result here would just be a stop, typically would be a stop work order at first, which they've already stopped.
Correct.
So it all comes about to like, Okay, so even if they say, well, they said they've already commenced construction, the wind farm, they've done all these things, well, they're not doing it right now, they've stopped. So having a stop work order when they've already stopped seems kind of silly, but.
But I'm just looking to see if it's necessary to take legal action. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, it doesn't, would we need to take legal action?
Only if they continued without the permit, I would say.
Yeah.
Before the law was passed.
Is Marcus asking for any particular action by the board?
Well, that's Marcus. What would you like to have done?
Well, I was trying, there was, basically, all of the comments were that, no, this construction that is being done is all legal, but I don't understand, based on these three laws and how I'm reading them, how it can be legal. Our wind law specifically talks about, access roads, building access roads. That's not allowed. Seeker is very clear on nothing can be disturbed except for minimal things such as core, for doing, surveying.
Foundation,
That type of thing.
right, things for foundations and things like that, yeah.
But no vegetation can be disturbed, no ground can be moved, anything under seeker. And as far as the DEC, if you look at the actual law, it says the intent to disturb more than an acre. Not just having disturbed more than an acre. If you disturb less than an acre, if this whole project doesn't have the intent to disturb more than an acre, well, then it's not as big a project as I thought it was.
Well, I'll get it in writing, but the guy from the woman from DEC in Albany was quite clear. They have not violated the DEC. I cannot compel DEC to do anything. Now, I can get that in writing, but I do not think that it's going to be substantially different than what I say. The deal with DEC is done. They find nothing wrong. So I don't know how we can be more restrictive than that without a very precise law.
Well, yeah, I mean, they could have violated either the DEC laws, or they could have violated the town of Enfield laws. They could have done one or the other. They wouldn't necessarily have to have done both. Often, situations I've come up with DEC before is, there have been times when we have actually broken the law and disturbed more than the amount that's supposed to be done before you get a permit from them. It's already vegetated back in, and the DEC representative comes by and says, well, it's okay, next time get a permit. But since it's already vegetated, it's fine. What they're concerned with is runoff and things like that. So there's a little bit of actually common sense in that process, which I think is a good thing. I guess when it comes to violating town of Enfield laws, it seems to me that we should have some common sense involved with that as well. So, I mean, it makes sense to find out the legal aspects of it. I don't know, I certainly don't want to be dismissive of what you're asking, Marcus, but at the same time, I'm not sure that the town or anyone will benefit for sure if we spend a lot of time on legal, looking into it and finding out, did they do this, did they do that, so forth and so on. So I'm a little bit torn both ways. The wind law is not really clear. It said don't do anything at all, and with the fact that the town of Enfield already has kind of a sensible provision as far as, well, if you start digging something or start moving something, come talk to us first. And we don't have a law that, like the town of Ithaca does, that says you can't move anything at all. Legally, I don't think it's something that we would want to take Black Oak to court for. I don't think we would necessarily be looking for, legal redress from them, other than to say, please don't do this again.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get Guy involved. I think we should just maybe tell Black Oak, don't do any more excavating.
Well, we can tell them that our understanding is that they weren't going to be doing that, and in keeping with the town law, it's understanding that they wouldn't be. But that would be more just of a clarification of what we understand the town law to say, rather than what their understanding of the town law was saying. And it's kind of great what the law says. I mean, it certainly could be interpreted to mean that you shouldn't do that.
So an access road, building an access road would be okay under our law? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Would be okay, what was it, what'd you say after that?
It would be okay under our wind law?
When you say that seeker law doesn't let you disturb any ground, you might be right, but I kind of remember.
Well, no, I'm talking about our wind law.
No, but let me make a point here, okay, and then we'll go on back to the wind law. I kind of remember them saying, something in the seekers saying that you can do minor things like drill in the ground and look for stone, so you know what's going on with the stone and things like that. And a lot of construction sites do that before they get a permit, so that they know whether it's feasible to build or whatever, so forth and so on. So I think that actually would be a legal thing for them to do under the seeker. So then, if you have a legal right to do that, if you have a legal right to drill in the ground at the site of the thing, would you then perhaps have a legal right to have a way to get to that site in order to do that drilling?
Well, but I think it actually does spell out in seeker that nothing can be done except for like core sampling.
Right.
And that sort of thing. To build
Right.
a road though, so you're saying that would be part of it, would be
Well,
an access.
I'm saying that in order to do a core sample, and
They did many core samples without roads.
I'm just saying that it's a gray point. And yes, it certainly could be interpreted that it shouldn't be done, and it certainly couldn't be interpreted as against seeker. I could take a devil's advocate point though and say, if I have this huge drilling machine that weighs 27 tons, and the guy looks at the field and he says, I'm not driving over there until you make a better surface for me to drive in, because you're gonna pay the bill to tow me out of there, it's gonna cost you $18,000 to get me out of there if I'm stuck. And they say, well, let's put some gravel in, and they could see you can get back and forth, so we know for sure you can do it. This is kind of standard procedure in the construction industry, that people will do things like that, and I think Alan's probably seen it. Most people that build places like this, especially larger places, will do things like this in order to set up that. Whether it's legal, quasi-legal, I don't know. Again, we could have Guy Crow look into it and say, well, no, it's not really legal. I think it's quasi-legal, and I think it's something that you would say, well, yeah, I understand why you would put some access gravel in there in order to get the machine back there, because you need to know whether it's doable or not. If we thought of this project as only having good aspects to it and no bad aspects to it, let's say we're going to put in a wonderful machine back there, probably we wouldn't have a problem with putting some gravel in to get the driller back there to put the wonderful machine in with. Unfortunately, it's not a wonderful machine, it's a good bad machine, so it has some goods and has some bads. So I understand your position to say, yeah, you're technically you might be breaking the law here. I could see it just as easily from the Black Oak side and say, well, technically we may not be breaking the law too. How much do we want to look into the legal things? And when we get the legal thing, what are we going to do with it? If we find out from Guy Crow in the end, and Guy says, nope, they shouldn't have done that. It's against seeker, it's against town law. Shouldn't have done it. Then what are we going to do?
I guess that's the question is, what do we do?
Yeah.
In that case, what would be the end game?
And that's my thought.
There is violation of teeth in the law.
Say it again?
There is consequences in the law. There's fines. There's, I think, actually civil.
Right. Do you feel like the town should pursue that?
I guess I hadn't thought that far yet. I just wanted to, the biggest thing that bothers me is I'm hearing how Black Oak is doing everything so great, and the reality is there's some things that are certainly questionable To answer that, before I answer that question definitively, I would want to think it through.
Yeah, I understand. I think that's very smart of you to say that. So, and to be honest, I feel the same way. But my first take on it is that let's try and make this work, and let's not devolve into legal ramifications and suing and countersuing, you know, if there's any way we can avoid it. So I'm still in the mode of let's see if we can make it work. Maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe I'm just a pie in the sky guy. But my thinking is that if you're two people and you're neighbors and you're trying to accomplish something and you're trying to come to a good end of it, when you start getting into legal ramifications and fines and all that kind of stuff, it does change the environment that you're dealing in. So my tendency would be to say, I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think you may well be correct. It certainly is possible that you are, and it may be likely that you are. I don't know for sure. I don't know that I want to spend the town of Enfield's money on a lawyer to look into this at this point, because I don't know that it's a current issue anymore. I don't think that Black Oak is intending on doing any more excavation or road building at the moment. So I would tend to say I wouldn't follow this any further than to understand that it's a really good observation. It's really good information to have, and I would keep it in mind for any future dealings with Black Oaks in terms of the work that they want to do on site before they have a permit. That's how I would feel about it. Anyways, so that's me. There is a fellow back there that wants to talk. If you are, Ann has to recognize you, I can't.
Sure. 3 minutes max.
My name's Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I thought it's probably a good idea what you're saying, but I think for clarification, it might be wise to determine how much land was actually disturbed.
That will come in the DEC ruling in writing.
Okay. Yeah. So if it's in writing, that would be a good idea, because that's just one more thing that someone could claim later that you just dusted it under the rug. And
No,
left
this
it.
is DEC.
Okay.
We have no jurisdiction over DEC. But the amount of disturbed land will be in the written thing.
Sounds like getting a
Yes.
thing from DEC is a good idea then.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, getting ready, what they were looking at and what they determined.
Yeah.
That would be in the report. Yep.
Okay.
Gabe,
No,
you didn't have your hand up.
no, I was.
You had your hand up. You were pointing.
That's kind of God.
Yes.
I was just wondering if...
Could you state your name for the
Yes,
record?
Judy Perkins from Black Oak Road.
Hi.
I was just wondering, did Black Oak Wind Farm Group come to the board before they put in the access road? Did you have any knowledge that they were going to do that before they did it? And also, two parts of this question. As far as your verbal okay from the DEC, was that before or after that was done? And was it before or after the Gingrich letter? I think the timing is important.
I see. I was not party to the complaint that was given to DEC. They did not tell me the day that they received a complaint.
We're talking about this complaint in particular.
I don't know. I don't know the date of the complaint or what was stated in the complaint. They verbally told me they had investigated 2 complaints, and one was the excavation of more than an acre of land, and one, I believe, maybe was the access road. As a courtesy, they called me. I knew nothing that this was going on. I do have a note of when I received the phone call, and I do not know, I do know now the date of Mr. Gingrich's letter, whether there's you know, I can make sure that the date of the complaint is put in DEC's letter, and you can investigate, because I'm not. But you can look. Dawn?
I have a question. I heard that certain things about, there was lies about, how many feet they need for access on the guide wires out back of my house. I would like to know for a fact how many feet on each side of those wires they need, because there's no way in hell they have enough room behind my house, and they're not coming on my land. And they're not going on Ryan's land, and they're not going on my neighbor's land, or there will be lawsuits. Because I heard they needed 150 feet per side of the wire. I'm not sure if that's true, because I missed the last meeting and stuff. But I can tell you right now, I want to know, and I'm going out and measure.
When you say needed, Dawn, who is the authority that would be defining it?
Probably Black Oak, since they already came behind my house and marked things for the wires.
Well, but Black Oak isn't the one that would say you have to have so much. Who would?
Well,
who would-
they're asking people to sign easements, so I need to know how much do they need there, because they've come right close to my land already, and they came on my neighbor's land marking it.
Right, but you're not thinking that there's any legal ramification to how much space they have to have in order
Well,
to
yes,
put the
because if
wires
they
in?
come on my land, there's gonna be consequences.
No.
Well, that's
but-
called trespassing. It's
Exactly.
Yeah.
New York State law, and you call the state police.
I already did,
This
Oh,
is,
well.
and they were on it before. But
That's-
I wanna know legally, find out through Black Oak for me, would you?
well, the thing is, Black Oak won't have a legal,
Well,
Thing.
whoever, I wanna know how much amount on each side, because they're coming through wetlands and woods and destroying them behind my home. I mean, you've been there, Mike, you've seen it.
I've seen it.
It's all wetlands, there's not much room behind me. There's a hill like this in our land, and a little bit of room where they wanna put the wires. See what I'm saying?
They were just,
No, I don't see what you're saying.
at this point, they were just marking, the lines, correct? They're marking the.
Right, but when they come out there,
But eventually, but you're saying eventually when they come out there.
Yes.
They're gonna have to do that, but they would have to go on your property, they would have to have an easement to do that, or
you
some
would
agreement.
think, but I don't trust
Well,
any of them, because
well-
they've already been on my land.
Well, they would have to, or otherwise, I'd watch them.
Or there would be dire consequences, trust me.
I've seen the shell.
I wanna
cases.
find out though, I wanna know if anybody can find that out for me.
So you're talking about overhead lines?
Yes,
Like what I would call electric lines?
where they're coming from the turbines.
What
across
I would
Griffin Road.
consider electric lines?
underground though, right?
They're going to the substation,
Now,
whatever
wait.
you wanna call them. I don't know if
Wait.
they're overhead.
I don't know.
You don't know whether they're overhead or buried in the ground?
I don't know.
They're buried underground.
Based on the plans that I've seen, all the collector lines are gonna be buried.
Yeah, there's
cable
no-
I
over.
thought
You're gonna bury
collector
them in
lines were
wetlands?
buried.
Hmm?
I thought by definition, collector lines were buried.
They don't have to be.
Oh,
I mean, they can have overhead. I
They
mean,
can have overhead
buried
collector
is probably
lines.
the least expensive now to do. And generally, just for information, usually with a utility easement goes in, it's usually a 20-foot wide easement that gives you enough room to work.
More than DEC up there then.
So 50 foot is a lot of.
I see problems with electrical.
I mean,
lines.
whenever I design a system that needs an easement to put a utility someplace, I would always ask for a 20-foot, because to get equipment on it,
Yeah.
you know, you need a little more space. That just, the trenches are probably 3 to 4 feet wide.
Well, I'd watch them.
Oh,
I'm sure-
trust
I'm
me.
sure you will be.
I got the cameras on.
now Gabe does have his hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I stand up now. I was wondering when the definite date of when we know where all 7 windmills are going.
When we do, after we pass the findings of fact, I believe. But I'd
Is
have
it-
to research that to really make a true answer.
When are we gonna know when the abandoned ones are okay? To consider abandoned? So
My answer would be very uninformed, so I'm not gonna answer. I don't have enough information.
If we want a legal thing from Guy about anything, it would be just to be clarified. The fact is, the new supplemental EIS basically says it's for 7 wind generators. So if it's for 7, then it's for 7. If they have the new locations to the 2 that got moved, that get approved, when and if the SEIS gets approved, then that will be for 7 total wind generators. I don't think there's any substantive approval of anything else other than those 7. So I think the ones that were in the original EIS just kind of go off the map at that point.
You guys can go through and pass all this with not even knowing where they're at?
Well,
We're going?
not knowing where the new ones are going?
Yeah.
No, I don't think we can pass everything and give permits without knowing where they're going. No. That's why
Yeah, I
it's,
would agree
it's
with
going to
that.
be a long process still.
Well, I mean, I know I want to know, because the one on Teeter's is going to be right across the road from my house.
Right, yeah.
And I would like to know if that's going to be abandoned, or if it's going to come right back, or they got them on a yo-yo right now, and just, okay, we might put it there, we might not.
I don't know, that's a good question for the lawyers, whether the supplemental, you know, when we pass it,
Right.
whether that they already have approved final EIS for the previous 7, which includes the one on Teeter's and Gunning's property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
So
I will say,
I
I will agree with you.
I don't think legally it takes them out of the game.
Well,
Because they already have a final.
they don't want them taken out of the game, because what they say is that if they don't get an approval for the supplemental environment impact statement, they will go back to the original environment impact statement and just put them in the 7 locations that were the original 7 locations.
I think Marcus wants to make a comment.
Well, that was what Black Oak said. That wasn't
Right,
me.
they keep saying that, but can they actually do that? From my understanding is that
Yeah.
they can't do that.
Let's just simply probably not.
I don't know that that's true, and I don't know why it wouldn't be legal, Marcus, and I don't know why it would be legal.
I would have to, I mean, maybe this is just hearsay, but my understanding is in order to put the substation as the original approved plan, it has to go on Rich Teeter's land, and it has to be on purchased property, which they cannot force him to sell. So they have to move that, so the original plan is out. And my understanding is also that the original approved plan put the new GE 2.3107 on Donnie Gunning's property, which did not adhere to the town's wind law as far as legal setbacks from adjacent property. So that one can't go. So the approved plan is not approved.
Well, it's approved, but are they able to implement it? Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know about Donnie's property. I thought that the setback was sufficient to Rob's property line.
For the smaller windmill,
No.
it was.
Not for the large one.
It was for the 1.7, not the 2.3.
But not for the 2.3, okay. Well, and I don't know the thing about that the substation has to be on an owned piece of property. You're gonna say that's true, right?
That's what Black Oak is.
That's what
There's-
ISAC
there's-
says.
there's
That's
two-
what NICEAG says.
Yeah, NICEAG has a requirement that they have, their facilities are on their property,
Right.
but some of the facilities are Black Oaks at the substation, so that doesn't have to, NICEAG will not allow that to be on their property.
Right. So unless Black Oak has a contract with Rich Teeter that forces Rich to sell that property to them, which I don't know that that's true or not.
No.
But, so, but what I'm telling you before was that this is a letter that I got from the president of Black Oak Wind Farm that said, if we don't get approval for the supplemental EIS, we will go back to the original EIS that we had approved and implement that one with the 7 turbines for that one. That was
The
what
smaller
letter said.
turbines.
No, it's not with smaller
Well, he didn't say with the
turbines.
smaller turbines, he just said they would go back and implement the original approval with the original finding statement, go back to the start that they've already had approvals for, and get a permit based on that.
Practically, may
Would
not
that, would that be
possible.
legal? I mean, if the one on Donnie Gunning's land does not adhere to town law, even though it was approved in the EIS, can it legally be put there?
No. I would say no.
I would
I'm
say
not
that
a
that
lawyer.
was an oversight when we approved the change from the shorter wind tower to the longer wind tower, and Black Oak told us that there was no substantial impact from it. Therefore, we understood that there wasn't, and then we approved that change. If that wasn't true, I would think that would have to be revisited legally if it's not in keeping with the wind law.
And the reality is also, if you look, well, all of them have actually moved. But 5 and 6 are also moved in order to comply with GE setbacks. And I believe it's 5 actually moves a small distance in order to comply with the town law.
Right. Which is
So-
why the
so
July
it's-
15th seemed a little bit short to me, but
Well, and
we'll
that's
see
the
though.
whole thing. It begs to question, it keeps saying, we keep hearing that there's an approved plan in place, but is there really a legally approved plan?
There's an approved final EIS. Whether or not they can implement that, I think is questionable. Yeah.
Well, if what you're saying is true, and I'm not denying that it's
No,
true,
yeah.
I'm just saying I don't know for me, but if what you're saying is true, then it seems like we can't go ahead and give them a permit based on that back EIS that we approved with the finding statement without amending it at least, if nothing else. And if they don't have a place to put the substation, then they don't have a wind farm project at that point, so that gets more complicated as well. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and it has to be sorted out still. Thanks for your letter anyways, appreciate it.
Okay, so, I will put this subject on the regular board meeting for finalization,
Which subject?
the Gingrich letter.
Um,
Or are we, have we got enough direction right now?
I think
I'm going to get a DEC
I think that would
ruling
be a
in
good
writing.
start. Yeah, that's
Right.
great.
Okay, I also wanted to ask Alice, our lawyer has provided Alice with 5 prospective FOIL laws, local laws. And Alice is to choose the one that she likes best. Have you chosen one yet, Alice?
Sue and I looked through them and we discussed, and I've written an email to Guy with the good points and bads from the 2, so he can proceed to put something together as a draft that we can look at. Sue
So
and
you
I,
selected 2
and Sue and I will look at
with
that and
additions.
work with him.
with additions
And subtractions, yeah.
and subtractions. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so I suspect we'll have a draft for the next regular meeting. I'll
Maybe.
follow up on that. And then the last item of business is this chart that was provided by Kathy Spencer of Labella. And as I said earlier in the meeting, does everybody have the chart?
Oh, I had one there. I'll see it now.
It was
Oh,
on the
never
table.
mind. Okay.
This was 2 weeks old, and so the first one is, needs to be updated. The transcript was forwarded to everyone on Monday. That would be May. That'd be May 23 or 22? No, that'd be 23. Was forwarded on May 23. And we've received the compilation of the written comments. Mike's gonna get them printed out, right? Hard
Yeah,
copy?
I'm gonna print them out.
There's going to be a new updated version of that, which will include the new public hearing verbatim minutes and one comment that was sent to the old email, the Hotmail account that
Oh,
I have forwarded to, you got it in your email, I think,
Right.
several months ago, but that will be included in the comments also.
so that's gonna be recompleted, or
With just
completed,
those
completed.
two additions, but all board members have received both of those
And,
things.
and just, if I could just interrupt just for a second, and I am gonna get a paper copy of that 475-page thing.
That's
I-
what
uh,
I thought I said.
Wow.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask, I can't do it on the computer as well. I don't know if anybody else has my limited educational computeries thing or not, but if you want more than one, I'll make more than one, is all. But this way I can take it to bed with me and read it all night.
Well, it would probably be good to get two, and we can, the
Okay.
rest of us
I'll
can.
get 2 copies. It's fine.
Aldrich and Haley has been notified to start their response to the public comment period. But they were, this was just Monday, so I'm not sure how far they've gotten. So then, after they complete an initial response, it'll be forwarded to Labella. And Labella, on their own, has started reviewing the public comment also, and categorizing comments. And the rest, so after that's done, then there's the rewrite and a review and edit, final edit. And then the final supplemental has to be circulated to involved agencies, and there's a certain amount of period that they have to reply. And then a statement of findings is prepared. So that's the all overview. And so we are at the very start of the third block of the church.
I'd like to ask a quick question. Maybe, Michael, you might know better the answer to this. It seemed to me when I was reading through the handbook for the seeker review process that there was a point, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 5 or 6 down on this page of process and timelines, where Black Oak Wind Farm was introduced back into the process to respond to the town's and Labella's responses. And that's not on here, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but it seemed to me that there was a point that said that the final supplemental EIS could actually be disapproved a number of times, depending on how Black Oak responded to the comments that were given to them. Does that sound right, or is that not in keeping with what your understanding is?
I don't know if the seeker goes into this level of detail in terms of the final EIS. I'd have to look at that. I was
Okay,
just looking more at the timelines.
I'll look it up and see.
But they didn't go into this level of detail on who's doing what. But I would say anywhere there's Labella on there, I think that Labella also represents us. So by extension, that's also the town board.
Right, well.
But they're gonna be doing, but Labella's saying Labella's doing it, they're actually gonna be doing the work. But-
Right, there is no approval by the town board anywhere in this timeline.
There is down here, review and edit final SEIS by a town board, so we do have.
But that's not an approval process. That's not an official approval process.
Yes, it is, yeah, we have to approve the final.
Well, there's no vote though, right? Or is there a vote? You
There has
think?
to be a vote.
It's a board action to
Yeah.
accept the final.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
the board is creating the final environmental impact statement.
Right.
It is the town board's document.
Yeah, don't,
So, I usually, in past experience with town boards and planning boards, there would be a resolution stating that the document, the final environmental impact statement has been prepared. And then that is sent on to the involved and
I think
interested
that
agencies.
it is not sent until it is approved by the town board
yeah.
to involved agencies.
Yeah, there's two things on here. One, I mean, we do have to review the final EIS and approve it.
You are
But
Yeah.
writing
but-
the final EIS.
Yes, we are.
Yes, but
it is
you
our
have to
responsibility.
approve it.
It is our document as lead agency.
So, right.
But there's also a second part, the last box on here says, statement of findings, that's a separate.
Yeah.
That's a separate board action.
That's a separate board
Right.
action.
Separate board action.
Where
After you-
based on the final EIS,
Right.
you determine whether there's negative or positive impacts and.
And the findings to say, okay, to do, it's basically putting a list of conditions on the project before.
Right, before permitting.
So that's
Yeah.
what findings.
They have to provide us with the haul routes. They have to provide us with the, I mean, these are some examples.
Yeah.
They have to provide us with the name of the company where they're gonna get the insurance or the security bonds or whatever they're gonna get. They have to do this. They have to,
Right, it is a finding statement. That's where the teeth of the seeker come in,
yes,
process, so.
yes.
That's the final
Yeah.
step in
That's my
the
understanding.
seeker, the environmental review. And then you start in the process of making sure that their permit application is complete so they can
Complete.
issue the permit.
So I would think we are missing a step in this grid here.
So what do you want me to tell
After number
Kathy to-
6, we're missing a step. It's saying that there is some kind of a formal process by the board to accept the SEIS.
Oh, you want added to this when the board votes.
If it's a vote, whatever it is, I want to understand what it is, I
Well,
guess, is what I'm saying.
When does board vote?
Yeah.
They would have to vote on.
Well, I assume it comes between review and, it would have to be somewhere in between review and issued.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be between 6 and 7. But I just wanted to make sure that I understood that we actually had something we had to do there that was a real substantive action item that happens.
Yeah, I think you're right, there is an action item. There's a row that should be there saying the board approves that or does an action on that. I think this grid is assuming that's happening, but we probably should put.
Well, for my peace of mind, yeah, that's an assumption I don't want to make.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, other additions to the June board meeting?
And I actually would like to, if I do find out that there is a point when Black Oak and Haley and Aldrich can or should come back into this process before we get to number 7, or even number 6B, I would like to bring that up at the June board meeting then.
You want that in the grid too?
If it's there, because I think it's important, if it is there, to have that in the grid. And I might be wrong about that, so I'll look into it and see.
As I said, I won't be here for the June 8th meeting.
Well, have a good time.
So.
I'll keep you appraised. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Let's adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
I got something to say.
Oh,
How has-
Mr. Riddle.
Yeah.